This week at the movies, is a pair of handcuffs all it takes to redeem the romantic comedy genre?
Find out when we review The Bounty Hunter, starring Jennifer Aniston and Gerard Butler.
Oh, sorry, did I wake you?
Also coming up this week,
I love this plan.
From the folks who brought you Kung Fu Panda, we've got your first look at the animated adventure, How to Train Your Dragon.
I'm Joan Jett. I want to start an all-girl rock band.
Kristen Stewart and Dakota Fanning are the rock and roll icons Joan Jett and Cherie Currie in The Runaways.
Hope I die before I end up meeting one of you in a job interview.
Plus, Ben Stiller in a dark comedy that I think is one of the best movies of the year. It's Greenberg.
I gotta take you to jail. You want to make a break for it? I will give you a 10-second head start for old time's sake.
I am an adult, Milo.
10, 9,
Do you really think that I would...
8, 7, 6.
Jennifer Aniston is on the run from Gerard Butler's Bounty Hunter. I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
And I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
Our first movie stars Jennifer Aniston and Gerard Butler as a New York newspaper reporter and a former cop. Remember those classic Hollywood comedies of remarriage where a couple of battling exes endured all kinds of screwball complications on the way to discovering that they really belong together after all? Well, this movie is kind of like one of those, but without the witty dialogue, the sexual tension, or any comedy more inspired than this.
I'm not letting you take me to jail.
Duly noted.
And I'm...
No! Oh, Milo! Oh, wait. You have got to be kidding me! You've got to be kidding me! Don't you? Out! Milo, stop it! Seriously, put me down! Milo! Ah!
You cannot be putting me in a trunk!
Butler's character, Milo, you see, is a bounty hunter, and it's his assignment to bring his former wife to court after she skips bail. But she's sniffing out a big story involving drug dealers and crooked cops, and he's on the run from some debt-collecting thugs. So pretty soon they're being chased all over New Jersey by various heavies. Every now and then, Milo throws the cuffs on her, maybe just so Friends fans can get a kinky thrill.
Hey, you trying to seduce me?
What? Yeah.
What's the hottest thing about me? That would be my gun.
Aniston is plucky and charming as ever, and if she had another leading man and a slightly better script, I might have said, go ahead and rent this. But Gerard Butler is pretty unpleasant company, and the movie is as coarse and brutish as his character. I felt like I was handcuffed to my seat while I was watching it, and I wanted to chew my arm off. So skip it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, but someday, as long as it was prosthetic, you know. But skip it, yes. And
it would be as bloody as some of the stuff that happens in this movie.
That's right. Okay, you mentioned screwball comedy. You know, partly this film wants to be one of those pictures, but you're talking about a film that is right up against the R rating, though it's PG-13, and it just doesn't have any finesse about how to deal with all this violence in it, and also kind of deal with the rom-com banter, which is absolutely flat-footed. And Aniston, you know, gets by purely on goodwill. And Butler, I just feel like I'm always dealing with a soccer hooligan playing a character.
Well, I don't understand.
I don't get any range
I don't really know the answer to this, but are there women out there who find this guy appealing and magnetic? He just seems rude and uncouth and unkempt, and there's no wit, no charm, no lightening up. You keep waiting for his character to show his sweeter, softer, you know, more attractive side, and as far as I could tell, he never does.
Too much of it, too. It stacks the deck completely against the female character, which is stunning because it comes from a female screenwriter. I don't know. The whole thing, it's another nail in the coffin of this genre, but one of these films is going to come into...
Let's hope.
Next movie. Ben Stiller's stripped-down, virtually shtick-free performance in the audacious new comedy Greenberg is going to be as much of a shock to many of his fans as Adam Sandler's out-of-character turn in Punch Drunk Love was. In Greenberg, Stiller plays a sometime musician and carpenter who's recently suffered a breakdown and who comes to L.A. from New York to house-sit for his brother. Socially phobic, unpredictably hostile, Roger Greenberg is a fragile SOB whose life is a series of SOS signals to those around him.
Laughing already demonstrates appreciation. The applause seems superfluous. And also, it's like, just treat the restaurant like it's your living room, guy. I'm weirdly on tonight.
Greenberg meets his brother's personal assistant, played by Greta Gerwig. Her performance here as a sweet, lost L.A. soul is going to impress and delight a lot of people.
I'm impressed by you.
In what way?
I don't know. I mean, you seem really fine doing nothing. It's like you don't feel all the pressure to be successful. I mean, by other people's standards.
The writer-director is Noah Baumbach, who made The Squid and the Whale and Margot at the wedding. I love them both. And the tone here is similarly risky, mixing comedy with real pain. Here, in a cocaine-induced rant, Greenberg turns on some much younger party guests.
You're all ADD and carpal tunnel. You wouldn't know agoraphobia if it bit you in the and it makes you mean. You know, you say things to someone like me who's older and smarter with this light air. I'm freaked out by you kids.
Is it for everyone? Hell no. Do I think it's one of the best films of 2010? Yes, indeed. I say see it. I really responded to this odd but very good picture.
I love this movie. One of the things that I loved about it was the way, instead of, pushing these characters through a busy plot, the way that a romantic comedy, say, would, it just trusts them to be interesting enough and kind of lets them explore their own world and each other. And it sort of feels a little bit aimless sometimes in the way that the characters are, but it has such feeling and such acute observation. I feel like Noah Baumbach is so good at a certain kind of character. Sort of, disaffected, intellectual, bohemian type, and he just penetrates into these people's minds so beautifully.
And
so
I think if you had not ever seen Ben Stiller in a film, Tony, he would be truly like, who is this guy? And what a revelation, and almost very little external or obvious effort of any kind. And that's so different from the kind of work Stiller's made his money on.
Well,
the Fokker pictures, Night at the Museum, and all that. Greta Gerwig, on the other hand,
also say,
easy as pie.
But very few people have seen Greta Gerwig in the film.
But she brought out something new in him, I think.
Something new in him, and also presented something new on screen. The way that she's a little bit awkward in her body, tentative in her line reads. You never think, oh, this is an actress acting. You think this is this person trying to figure out her way in the world and make sense of her life.
And in that regard,
beautiful, eccentric, lovely movie.
And it's the kind, it captures L.A. and that spirit you're talking about. It's like the gap between L.A. dreams and reality, and both of these characters are kind of trying to make sense of it and make sense of their lives. It's good.
No, this is one people should really check out.
Yes,
really go search for. Coming up next, Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart take us back to the 1970s, long before either one of them was born, in a punk rock biopic called The Runaways.
And later in the show, has DreamWorks found their next Shrek? We've got the early review of How to Train Your Dragon.
Has anyone ever tried to train a dragon?
We did it. Mercury Records.
We got signed.
The Runaways have the most chance of any group I've seen to tear this world apart.
If you have fond memories of the heady, nasty days of early punk rock, and I admit I do, even though it makes me feel a little old to say it, then our next movie, The True Story of the Runaways, will take you right back, even though it stars two of the brightest teenage actresses of the moment, Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart. They play Cherie Curry and Joan Jett, disaffected California adolescents recruited by a sleazy visionary promoter to form the notorious all-girl rock band that gives the Runaways its name.
Well, Cherie Curry, do you sing or play a musical instrument?
Yeah, I can sing.
Read my lips. We love your look. We are choosing you to be a part of rock and roll history.
Michael Shannon is Kim Fowley, the Svengali of the group. He captures both the creepiness and the charisma of this character, and first-time feature director Floria Sigismondi gets the feel of the period just about right. Fanning is good as the vulnerable, confused Cherie, and Stewart is excellent. Her character is quieter, more focused on the music. The real Joan Jett, by the way, is one of this film's producers. Sigismondi doesn't always have a clear sense of which story she's telling, but her grasp of the mood of the times, as well as her sympathy for these angry young women, makes up for some of the lack of narrative focus. This movie is messy and passionate, just like the Runaways music at its best. See it.
Yes, I say see it too, Tony. I think I had a different experience of the film from you, though, in that I wanted a messier, kind of wilder, less by-the-book kind of biopic than this is. But we'll talk about that a little later in the show, because this film relates to so many other different biopics we can name. I think where it works, though, is everything that just is pure behavior, where you really get a sense of Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart working with that director and just creating that kind of headlong idea of what it's like to grow up so much faster than you should in show business.
That's what I like about it, is exactly as you say. I mean, these scenes scenes that kind of, you know, wander through their experience rather than sort of pushing them along the kind of the arc of the plot, which you know pretty much what's going to happen, that you know, one of these characters is going to get through it okay, the other one is a little more at risk. The Cherie Curry, the Dakota Fanning character, who gets into a lot of, you know, drugs and exploitation and that kind of stuff. But it's so sensitive to what they're going through. And it captures so well this feeling of being young, being in love with rock and roll, and also being caught up in this world of celebrity and touring and all of that stuff, and trying to find some identity as an artist before you've even really found an identity as a person. I mean, they're like 16 years old.
And I wouldn't have related this to Greenberg, the film we just talked about, but in a way they have very similar strengths. It's all about the mood, the atmosphere of L.A., and just sort of that wonderful character feeling that you don't get from most American films. So there you go. Coming up next, 2 movies about kids trying to find their way. First, we've got the early review of How to Train Your Dragon, and we'll take a look at Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Next week, John Cusack goes back to the 80s in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Leg movements. I'm sure there's a good explanation for all this. Jerry girl!
Plus, Julianne Moore, Liam Neeson, and Amanda Seyfried in Chloe. Next week at the movies.
Get down!
It's okay. You just scared him.
I scared him?
Everything we know about them is wrong. Let me show you.
It's kind of like an animated version of Avatar, but half as long and with Vikings. The movie is How to Train Your Dragon, and we've got the early review. A young Viking named Hiccup, voiced by Jay Baruchel, has an identity crisis when he realizes that killing dragons, which is the whole point of being a Viking, is wrong. Like Jake Sully in Avatar, Hiccup saddles up a winged lizard and betrays his warlike tribe. And just like every other cartoon hero, he's got a squad of goofy peers and a feisty romantic interest. Her name is Astrid, and her voice belongs to America Ferrera.
Hiccup, get in there!
So anyway, I'm moving into my parents' basement. You should come by sometime to work out. You look like you work out.
Spotlight, you're done.
Oh, I guess it's just you and me, huh?
Nope, just you.
But the relationship that gives this movie its heart is between Hiccup and a misfit dragon he calls Toothless. The scenes between the boy and his beast show that the DreamWorks people have learned a valuable lesson from recent Pixar movies, which is that the magic of animation often works best without dialogue. There's amazing personality in this creature's movements, and when Toothless takes wing with Hiccup on his back, so does the movie.
Oh my, it's working! Yes! Yes, I did it!
Like Avatar and Up, How to Train Your Dragon uses 3D to capture the thrills of flying. Going by the characters and the story, I might have said rent or even skip this one, but that's swooping and soaring. They're worth the price of a ticket. So go see it.
Yes, I see it too, Tony, and it's a film that needs to be seen in 3D. And yes, does the film exist largely for these flying sequences? Absolutely. It does not matter that they're maybe tenuously related to certain story elements, because the animation just is of a better quality than you get from most DreamWorks pictures. And for me, it goes back to the DreamWorks film I like the best, which is nothing to do with the Shrek trilogy, which I didn't even like personally, but Kung Fu Panda. That film gave you a very rich storybook kind of series of images, and this has the same sort of visual strength.
It's one of those things where you look at these creatures. There's 4 or 5 different species of dragon that you see in this, and each one has its own body movements, its own personality, its own way of behaving.
Now, the first 10 minutes of this film, pure chaos, absolutely assaultive, noisy.
All of the worst aspects of kids' animation.
And you think
voiceover, celebrity voices,
and you're dropped in the middle of this
jokes.
dragon fight, and you just feel like, is the whole film going to be like this? Then you might as well rent Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs again, but then the film gets good.
I mean, there is just something really pure and innocent and simple about that feeling of flight, of just like soaring through space.
Yes, like Avatar, as you said.
And this movie at its best really captures that.
Now, we're seeing How to Train Your Dragon has some real imaginative sweep, and it's a successful adaptation of a children's book. Here's a sadder story from a hugely popular series of best-selling kids' books, which my son adores. It's one of the most disappointing movies of the year. How did this happen to Diary of a Wimpy Kid? The books are clever, funny, they're detailed journal dispatches from the life and misfortunes of young Greg Heffley, who was author Jeff Kinney's conduit for all sorts of humiliating lower and middle school memories. The movie takes 95% of the charm and fun out of the books. For example, a scene like this.
Hey guys, wanna see my secret freckle? Frankly, sent home for hygiene issues at least once a month.
Check it out. It's got a hair in it.
The film is one grinding slapstick episode after another, and even with a pretty good young actor, Zachary Gordon as Greg, the whole time I was watching it, I thought, you can get this kind of stuff every night of the week on Nickelodeon. Why pay more? I say skip it.
I say skip it too. And
Sad.
the shows on Nickelodeon or on the Disney Channel have, you know, they can be obnoxious and loud, but they have a kind of energy and a sense of, you know, the fun and excitement and craziness of being a kid.
Yes.
This movie is just so slack and dull and just kind of ugly.
And mean-spirited, yeah, because I think the same gags that work, you know, in illustrations on the page, gross-out gags, whatever you're talking about, they do not translate easily to live action. It is not fun to watch a lot.
Exactly. It's not fun to watch. You can read, it's funny to read about people picking their noses or eating pieces of moldy cheese,
Yes.
but to see...
A little fun, yeah.
Well, no, but on the page, like, you know, your kids are cracking up about it. But here, it's just kind of like the atmosphere. It doesn't either get the sort of realism that it might have or the whimsy and fun. And it is dispiriting as the world. I'm very disappointed.
Nothing's going for it.
These books are fun, but not the movie. Coming up next, we told you about the Runaways, and now turn your TVs up to 11. We're making our picks for our favorite movies about rock and roll.
When I was arrested, I was dressed in black. They put me on a train and they took me back. Had no friend for to fill my bill. They stuck my dried-up carcass in the county jail.
That was a scene from the Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line, and the musical biopic is an evergreen genre. People seem to love watching stories about, you know, the rise and fall and hard times of various real life.
How about the jazz singer, 1927, Al Jolson, right? It began then, honestly. It's a medium born for sound film. And what I liked about Walk the Line, Tony, is that it has a lot of the basics of the biopic kind of nailed down, but I just feel like those personalities there were allowed to develop and, you know, kind of more of the offstage life that you don't get. Often it's just performance sequence or addiction nightmare. Right?
Actually, I prefer Ray to Walk the Line because, you do? Well, and the thing that for me distinguishes, you know, a good musical biopic from a run-of-the-mill one is an emphasis on the music. I mean, in the end, we're not interested in these people, real or fictitious, you know, whether we're talking about Spinal Tap or Ray Charles right. or you know, the guy from Joy Division
what are we interested
in the movie Control. We're interested in the music. We're interested in, for example, how did the Runaways develop their sound? How did Ray Charles, you know, change rhythm and blues? How did the characters in Cadillac Records, the wonderful and underrated, underappreciated sort of Chess Records rhythm and blues group biopic, how did they, you know, take this sound from the Mississippi Delta and bring it up north to Chicago?
Yeah. I'd say all that very important. But what I like about the Runaways and what I love about a film like Sid and Nancy, the Sex Pistols biopic, that you get all that killing time stuff where they literally are on the bus waiting, just killing hours of time to the next gig, and that truly is life on the road for so many people.
Well, and I think the classic of that genre has to be Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous.
Yes, yeah.
Not a biopic. It's not about a real band, although it is somewhat autobiographical.
And it's too romantic. I think I feel it's too romantic.
Yes, but it does have one of the great depictions of a critic of one of our tribe, Philip Seymour Hoffman playing the great and impossible
Lester Bangs. Yes, that's right. All the movies we've discussed today are available on DVD.
Can't decide what to see in theaters? Stay tuned for my 3 to see.
People are dying out there. I want to know why.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
Look for delicious Cadbury's, Reese's, and Hershey's products in the Easter candy aisle. 'Cause no bunny knows Easter better than Hershey's.
Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago. Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience. Located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
Everyone seems to be looking for something to be angry about these days, so I've got 3 movies about angry people in my 3 to see. And number 3 is The Runaways with Dakota Fanning and Kristen Stewart as a pair of teenage girls turning their rage into rock and roll. My number 2 pick is Green Zone with Matt Damon as an American soldier in Iraq who's mad as hell about the official lies that put him there. And as for number 1, Ben Stiller in Greenberg, he's angry at everything in his terrific new movie, Noah Baumbach.
Not for everyone. It's great, though. I think it's very good. That's it for now. We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show, and now you can join the discussion by following us on Twitter and on Facebook. Just go to atthemoviestv.com to find out how.
And join us next week for reviews of Hot Tub Time Machine with John Cusack and Chloe with Amanda Seyfried and Liam Neeson. Until then, we'll be at the movies.